Every day, nearly 70% of America's carrots are transformed into perfect orange snacks, thanks to an idea from 1985 that turned unwanted, misshapen roots into a billion-dollar empire. But behind those glossy, bite-sized pieces lies a world of engineered fields, factory secrets, and a duopoly that now controls over 60% of the fresh carrot market. This is how millions of baby carrots are made, not by nature, but by calculated agronomy and relentless industrial scale. What really goes on inside the system that changed the way we eat? In the carrot fields of California's Central Valley, the process begins long before harvest. Growers contracted by major processors receive precise instructions. Seed 1.3 million to 1.5 million carrot seeds per acre, arranged in twin rows spaced 2.5 to 3.5 inches apart. This layout is not about maximizing space, it is about shaping the carrot itself. When seeds are packed this tightly, every root must compete for light and nutrients. Instead of fat, tapered carrots, the plants stretch into long, slender taproots, typically 8 to 10 inches in length and less than 1¼ inches wide. The result is a field full of uniform roots, each one designed to be cut into 4 to 6 snack-sized pieces. This density drives the outcome in the field, and it drives the factory too. For growers, these specifications are not suggestions, they are requirements. Contracts from the big processors dictate not only the seed rate, but also the carrot variety, planting date, and fertilizer schedule. The goal is consistency. Every root must fit the factory's needs or risk being rejected at the first sort. This tight control means that in a single acre, tens of thousands of potential baby carrots are growing side by side, their shape and size determined by the density of the field. The economics are clear. Cut stock fields regularly yield between 13 and 38 tons per hectare, sometimes outpacing traditional fresh market carrot fields. Each harvest delivers a flood of slender roots, ready for transformation. For the growers, this system offers stability, a guaranteed buyer, and a predictable price. But it also means giving up some autonomy. The field becomes an extension of the processing plant, every row engineered for maximum efficiency. As harvest approaches, the connection between field geometry and factory technology becomes obvious. The uniformity demanded by the processors starts here. With every seed placed according to plan, every root shaped by competition. What happens next depends on how well these carrots meet the exacting standards set by the machines waiting at the plant. This uniformity is the foundation of the baby cut carrot industry. In 1985, a California carrot grower named Mike Urosek faced a problem that had plagued the industry for decades. Nearly half of his carrots were being thrown away, not because they tasted bad, but because they were crooked, broken, or too odd looking for grocery store shelves. Instead of accepting the waste, Urosek set out to find a solution. He brought in a green bean cutter, trimmed the carrots down to 2-inch lengths, and rounded the ends. The result was a snack-sized carrot that looked nothing like the original root, but tasted just as sweet. He called them Bunny Love and began selling them in bags, not as ingredients for soup or stew, but as a ready-to-eat snack. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Focus groups expecting to see a new cooking carrot instead found themselves reaching for handfuls of the snack-sized pieces. Retailers quickly grasped the appeal. Suddenly, a product once destined for cattle feed or landfill was in high demand. Urosek's idea did not just rescue rejected carrots, it created a new category in the produce aisle. Within a few years, other growers and packers rushed to follow. The industry shifted from selling whole carrots to producing uniform, bite-sized pieces, each one shaped by machines and polished for consumer appeal. The market reaction made the demand clear. By the 1990s and into the 2000s, the baby cut carrot had transformed the entire supply chain. Specialized harvesting equipment, high-speed cutters, and automated polishers became standard. The process required huge investments, factories capable of processing tens of thousands of pounds a day, with engineers and technicians overseeing every step. This capital outlay created a barrier to entry. Today, just two companies, Grimway Farms and Bolthouse Farms, control more than 60% of the United States baby-cut carrot market. Together, they supply the majority of the 70% of carrots now sold in baby-cut form, driving a market worth $1.4 billion each year. What started as a way to save waste became a business model that demands scale and relentless uniformity. The stakes are clear. Only the biggest players can afford the technology and logistics needed to keep millions of snack carrots moving from field to bag every single day. Inside the plant, the first challenge is speed. Carrots arrive straight from the fields, still chilled to just above freezing, about 3 degrees Celsius, to keep them crisp and slow spoilage. The operations manager oversees intake, watching as truckloads move quickly onto the line. Each route is scanned by high-speed cameras, which analyze every carrot for length, diameter, curvature, and surface flaws. The system flags any that are too thick, too bent, or show signs of green shoulders. Those are set aside and logged as rejects. On a typical day, 10 to 20% of the incoming carrots are culled at this stage, either for being outside the strict cut stock profile or showing early signs of damage. The remaining carrots are lined up on moving belts, still cold from their bath, and fed into a series of multi-knife cutters. Here, precision is everything. The cameras calculate the best way to divide each root into uniform 2-inch pieces, aiming for maximum yield with minimal waste. Cut points are mapped in real time, and the knives strike with exact timing. Any ends or segments that do not meet the size or shape criteria are automatically diverted. This is the first major yield loss node in the process. Every decision and every cut is tracked and recorded by the plant software. The operations manager explains that this early segmentation is critical. The smoother the surface at this stage, the easier it will be to peel and polish the carrots in the next steps. Rough cuts or broken ends make for more waste downstream, so the line is tuned for both speed and accuracy. Even with automation, operators monitor the reject logs and adjust machinery as needed, balancing throughput against quality. The goal is clear: deliver as many perfect 2-inch carrot pieces as possible, ready for the abrasive peelers ahead. Every second counts, and every carrot that makes it through this stage is one step closer to becoming a snack in someone's lunchbox. Raw carrot segments, freshly cut and chilled, move swiftly from the precision slicers to the abrasive peeling line. Here, the process is anything but gentle. Each piece is funneled into a large rotating drum lined with silicon carbide rollers, industrial grit designed to strip away the tough outer skin at speed. Water jets blast the surface, flushing away loosened peel and keeping the drum from overheating. But even with this cooling, friction inside the peeler can raise the carrot's temperature by 6 to 8 degrees Celsius in just a minute. The line engineer, monitoring temperature and flow readouts from a glass-walled control booth, explains that the margin for error is slim. Too little abrasion, and the peel clings stubbornly to the root, leaving a rough texture that customers reject. Too much, and the rollers tear into the carrot's cell walls, exposing pale cellulose beneath the surface. This is the dreaded white blush, a cosmetic flaw that appears as a chalky film just hours after processing, making the carrots look stale even when they are fresh. The numbers matter here. Peel loss is tracked by weight, batch by batch. On a well-tuned line, about 8 to 12% of the carrot's mass is lost in the peeler. Anything higher triggers an alarm and a rapid adjustment, roller pressure eased, dwell time shortened, water flow increased. The engineer points out that every extra percentage point of peel loss translates to tons of wasted carrot each day, tightening the balance between efficiency and product quality. Operators walk the line, checking for heat spots and watching for signs of surface tearing. Even a slight miscalibration can push the process over the threshold, damaging the carrots and sending yield numbers tumbling. Once peeled, the carrot pieces tumble into a polishing drum lined with fine grit brushes and linen strips. This step is less about removal and more about finish. The polisher rounds off any sharp edges left by the cutter and buffs the surface to a glossy sheen. The result is a smooth, bright orange piece that looks almost artificial in its perfection. The engineer highlights the importance of this finish, not just for appearance, but because a smooth surface resists drying and discoloration during storage. With peel loss kept under control and the surface polished, the carrots are now ready for the next phase, a series of sanitizing and color-preserving washes that will lock in freshness and extend shelf life. Inside the factory's sanitation suite, a new layer of control takes over. Carrot pieces, now gleaming from the polishers, are plunged into flumes charged with either free chlorine or peracetic acid. The quality assurance lead, clipboard in hand, describes the protocols. Chlorine is dosed to 100 to 150 parts per million, held at a pH between 6 and 7, and monitored by inline sensors that log residuals every minute. Peracetic acid is used in some lines and runs at 60 to 80 parts per million. Both solutions have one job: kill bacteria and viruses that might have survived the earlier steps. Contact time is short, usually 1 to 2 minutes, but the effect is decisive. Any lapse can trigger a food safety event, and the line's history includes recalls that forced rapid upgrades to both sanitizer chemistry and monitoring. But the process does not end with disinfection. The quality assurance lead points to a second, quieter tank at the end of the line. Here, carrots are bathed in an antioxidant solution made of citric acid and cysteine. This step is rarely mentioned on packaging or in public tours, but it is essential. Without it, residual chlorine would keep oxidizing the surface, fading the bright orange color, and dulling the flavor. The citric acid and cysteine dip acts as a chemical brake, quenching leftover oxidants and locking in the vivid hue. Parameters are tight. Citric acid is kept between 100 and 500 parts per million, cysteine at lower levels, and the solution is cooled to below 10 degrees Celsius to slow further reactions. Quality assurance logs show that after this step, residual chlorine falls below 0.5 parts per million, meeting FDA standards for ready-to-eat produce. Inline probes track pH and oxidation reduction potential, while technicians spot-check antioxidant levels with colorimetric strips. The quality assurance lead explains these records are proprietary, but admits that even small deviations can prompt a line halt. Some industry insiders argue that not all plants disclose the timing or composition of their antioxidant baths, raising questions about transparency and the consumer right to know. For now, the data is logged, the tanks are sampled, and the finished carrots move on, their color stabilized and their surface chemistry reset. Only after this hidden intervention are they ready for the next phase, a water system designed to recapture, recycle, and reuse nearly every gallon. At the heart of the plant's sustainability program is a closed-loop water system engineered to keep more than 90% of wash water in constant circulation. The plant engineer, surrounded by real-time flowcharts and sensor panels, explains how every gallon that enters the facility is tracked from intake to discharge. After the sanitizer and antioxidant baths, water is routed through a series of coarse and ultrafine screens, some as fine as 75 microns, to strip out carrot peels and pulp. Before the 2016 retrofit, much of this water was lost to discharge, and the screens struggled to keep up with the sheer volume of solids. Upgrading to an ultrafine belt system doubled the plant's reuse rate almost overnight, but not without early setbacks. For the first 72 hours, logs show repeated clogging and foaming, forcing the team to refine backwash schedules and adjust pump speeds until the flows stabilized. Captured solids do not go to landfill. Each day, Tons of carrot peel and pulp are diverted to local dairies as animal feed, or sent for composting and biogas production. Dissolved air flotation units skim off remaining organics, and water is disinfected with UV or a residual sanitizer before looping back into the wash tanks. The engineer pulls up a manifest, highlighting the drop in total suspended solids sent off-site since the retrofit, clear evidence of both environmental and economic gains. Every improvement in screening and reuse means less water drawn from the aquifer and less waste to manage, a critical consideration in drought-prone California. The plant's records, reviewed quarterly for regulatory compliance, document a system that now captures over 90% of its processed water and routes nearly all organic byproducts to secondary uses. At the end of the line, a row of high-speed optical sorters stands between the polished carrots and the packing floor. Each piece races along a conveyor and is scanned by cameras capturing thousands of frames per second. The system checks for any sign of deviation, such as bends greater than 20%, blunt ends, green shoulders, or surface cracks. In less than a second, software flags out of spec pieces and a burst of air ejects them from the main stream. The operations manager reviews the real-time dashboard. On a typical shift, 15 to 20% of all carrot pieces are rejected here. This is the final quality safeguard, and the numbers matter. Each sorter processes 5 to 15 tons of carrots every hour, with the line's operational effectiveness, OEE, hovering between 80 and 90%. The target is clear: maximize throughput without letting a single flawed carrot slip through. Every rejected piece is logged and routed for secondary uses, but the manager's focus stays on the main flow. The optical sorters are relentless, enforcing the plant's strict standards and ensuring that only the most uniform, market-ready carrots make it to the next phase. In this environment, precision is not just a goal, it is the rule that keeps millions of snack carrots on track for shipment every single day. A cold blast of air hits as the freshly sorted carrots enter the packaging hall. Here, the final barrier between perfect snack and spoilage is invisible, the atmosphere inside each bag. The operations manager stands by a bank of monitors, eyes fixed on oxygen and carbon dioxide readings. Every bag is sealed with a co-extruded film engineered to let just enough gas escape, targeting 8 to 12% oxygen, 3 to 8% carbon dioxide, with humidity held near 90%. The temperature is kept at 33 degrees Fahrenheit, just above freezing. This precise environment extends shelf life to 3 to 4 weeks, but there is little room for error. Too much oxygen and the carrots dry out or lose crunch. Too little oxygen and carbon dioxide builds, spoiling flavor. The quality assurance lead scrolls through logs confirming that each batch meets the modified atmosphere packaging targets. When asked for the exact film permeability or a breakdown of annual plastic use, the manager hesitates. The numbers are proprietary, he says, and not disclosed to the public. Energy use for chilling and the total weight of plastic film per year, hundreds of kilograms per ton of packed carrots, are tracked internally but rarely released. The tension is clear. The science that keeps carrots fresh also demands accountability. Yet in this control room, full transparency remains just out of reach. Every snack-sized carrot depends on a supply chain engineered for scale, efficiency, and control, driven by just a few dominant players. As food systems face rising scrutiny over sustainability and transparency, what happens inside these plants shapes what ends up on our plates and how we think about waste, value, and trust in what we eat. The next bite is never as simple as it seems. Share your thoughts below.